Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Japan Society. I am Motoatsu Sakurai, President of Japan Society. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the lecture with Mr. Naomi Hirose. He is the Executive Vice Chairman for Fukushima Affairs at Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings. He also manages the Fukushima incident as the President CEO of TEPCO, Tokyo Electric, from 2012 to 2017. So he was CEO right after the great earthquake. Today he will be speaking about the Fukushima accident and its aftermath. Before we begin, we would like to thank each of the sponsors that make this business and policy program possible. Global leaders, Citi, Deloitte, and United Airlines, and corporate partners, Mizuho Financial Group and Toyota Motor North America. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's presider, Professor Gerald Curtis. Professor Curtis is the Burgess Professor Emeritus of Political Science at Columbia University and Distinguished Senior Research Fellow at the Tokyo Foundation. He also serves as a member of the Board of Directors of Japan Society. Professor Curtis' commentaries are published frequently in newspapers and magazines and many others in the United States, Japan, and other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Curtis to the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. As you all know, 7.5 years ago, the worst, most powerful earthquake in Japan's recorded history devastated the northeast coastal area of the country in Tohoku. And it created a tsunami that exceeded the equivalent of a 12-story building that went 10 kilometers inland, and that destroyed the nuclear plant at Fukushima number 1 power station. Ever since that awful disaster, Japan and the company that we are going to be talking about today, Tokyo Electric Power Company, have been struggling to deal with the consequences. The consequences being dealing with the radioactivity that was created, dealing with the dangers to the environment, dealing with the human disaster that emerged with 150,000 people and more fleeing from towns in the area and around the plant in Fukushima, dealing with the enormous financial costs of this disaster. And the struggle goes on. And we're very fortunate to have with us today Mr. Naomi Hirose, who, as Mr. Sakurai just mentioned, is the Vice Chairman in charge of Fukushima affairs at TEPCO, and was the President and CEO of the company from the time of the immediate aftermath of the accident until last year. So I'll ask Mr. Hirose to come to the stage and to give a presentation for about 30 minutes, and we'll follow that with a relatively brief but question and answer period. And when we get to the Q&A, let me just stress how important it is that as many of you as possible ask questions, and for that to happen, that you keep the question really short, to the point, and don't give a speech. We only have one person to give a speech today, and that's Mr. Hirose. So without further ado, let me welcome Mr. Hirose to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Naomi Hirose. It's my great pleasure and an honor to be here today to speak to you. Thank you very much, Japan Society and President Sakurai-san, for providing me this opportunity. Taking this opportunity, I'd like to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart to the people of the United States and the U.S. government, the embassies, U.S. Embassy to Japan, and then all of you for all the support extended to TEPCO since the accident of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. It's been 7.5 years after the accident. Fortunately, the condition of the plant and then situation of the surrounding communities are getting better and stable day by day. Although the accident itself was very, very serious one, but we have learned a lot from the accident, and we have experienced a lot since the accident. I'd like to speak about these things, well, maybe 30 minutes or so, then I would like to answer to your questions. So let me begin with a brief explanation of what actually happened 7.5 years ago. As you know that it was 2:46 p.m., afternoon of the Friday, 2011, March 11, that the very, very large earthquake hit Japan, and a magnitude of 9.0. This is the biggest, largest earthquake in Japan's recorded history. I heard that this is the fourth largest in the world. Epicenter was right in front of our Fukushima nuclear power station, about 180 some kilometers away. It's about 110 miles away. And when it happens in our nuclear power plant, so-called scrum was made. A scrum means that inserting control rods between the nuclear fuels. It means stop nuclear fission. Stopping nuclear fission means stopping power generation. So nuclear power generation station needed power for itself. Then the power was supposed to come from outside, but an electric pylon fell down so that no power was supplied from the outside. So immediately after that, self-generation system started working for the emergency. So turbine generators and then batteries started working, and they supplied electricity to the nuclear power plants. And then we gained the control of the power station. I was in the headquarters in Tokyo. The first report that I received was scrum was safely made, and we are controlling nuclear power plants. So I was very much relieved this report, because that we had experienced this scrum thing before several times, because we had a big earthquake before. So that I thought that this was one of those past events. But 50 minutes later, 3:37 p.m., the devastating tsunami hit Japan. Probably you have seen many times that the tsunami approaching to the east coast of Japan, washing away all the things. Unfortunately, there was nobody taking movie or video of tsunami approaching to the nuclear power plants. I guess they are busy, controlling the plant right after the accident, right after the earthquake. But we recently found one guy in thermal power plant actually was taking video of tsunami approaching to the thermal power plant. That thermal power plant is Hirono Thermal Power Station here. It's about 20 kilometers south of Fukushima Daiichi, 12 miles south of Fukushima Daiichi. So let's watch that tsunami approaching to the thermal power plant, please. This is Pacific Ocean. This side is north, this side is east, south. Tokyo is this side. The tsunami came from the south. Please take a look at these automobiles. Again, this is a thermal power station. This is not a nuclear power station. But since it's so close, I guess that the similar situation taking place in nuclear power plants. But this goes on and on, so let's stop this video. I would like you to have some kind of the images of the tsunami approaching to the nuclear power station. And this is a map of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. This is Pacific Ocean. This side is north. This side is south. There is a unit number 1, 2, 3, 4. And this blue area was inundated with the seawater, with tsunami. And as you know, that the nuclear fuel keep a vast amount of heat even after nuclear fission stopped. So that we have to cool them down by recirculating water. But pump stopped because the tsunami washed away all the emergency diesel generators and the batteries. So we lost the power completely. It is called station blackout. And then, of course, pump stopped. So that the temperature of the nuclear fuel went up. And you know that the fuel rods are covered with metal called zircaloy. Zircaloy start melting at around 1500 degrees Celsius. And then it started melting. And the vast amount of hydrogen was formed by the chemical reaction with this molten zircaloy and water. And that hydrogen is lighter than the air, so it went up and then accumulated within the building, the top of the building. And still this time, there are still a lot of aftershocks. And I guess probably something like an electric bulb or some shaft or pipes or whatever fell down. And probably that ignited explosion. And hydrogen explosion took place at Unit 1, Unit 3, and Unit 4 of Fukushima nuclear power station, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. And this spread, nuclear radioactive material spread outside of the plant and contaminated the surrounding community. This right-hand side map is as of April 2011, so 1 month after the accident. This red area is very much contaminated. And obviously, the wind came from southeast to northwest, so that this is a power station. So the contaminated area spread to the northwest. But this is right-hand side map is as of November 2017, so 6.5 years after the accident. It looks better because we did a lot of decontamination work, and then as you know that nuclear materials, the radioactivity declines as time goes by. So it looks now very much better than what it the evacuation zone within a radius of 30 kilometers. So something like this big area was evacuation zone. But of course, it became smaller and smaller. Now, only 2 towns, Okumamachi and then Futabamachi, those 2 towns left still as a evacuation area. And this is the number of people who are forced to be evacuated. Still more than almost 20,000 people cannot go back to their homes. This is what actually happened 7.5 years ago, and then after that. Let me update the plant situation. As I said, now the nuclear power station is in very stable conditions. The cooling water is continuously recirculated to cool down the spent fuel and then fuels, the fuel debris. And temperatures and the other parameters are monitored continuously 24/7. So the situation is very stable now. And let me talk about radiation level in the area, in the plant area. As you see, this is the area of the plant, Fukushima Daiichi. In September 2013, still all the area, workers or visitors, whoever, are required to wear these protective gear, full face mask, and then coveralls, and 3 gloves, 2 socks, that kind of things. But now, 96% of the area is what we call green zone, where you don't have to wear anything. It's just a regular clothes you can go into this plant. Although, of course, the reactor buildings and then surrounding still need to wear this heavy stuff. But 96% of the area is now, you can go. And so the working condition in the plant has been very much improved. I would say there are 2 major, very difficult challenges ahead of us. One is removing spent fuel. The other is removing fuel debris, molten fuels. Let me talk about the fuel, spent fuel removal. Some hundreds of the spent fuel left still. But take a look at the unit number 4. We have removed all the 1,535 fuel bundles from unit number 4. Because the unit number 4 was not operation on March 11, 2011, so there was no fuel inside the reactor. All the fuels had been removed to this spent fuel pool. So that that's why this is so many fuel bundles left in the spent fuel pool. But we took them out, all of them. So now, as far as unit number 4 is concerned, so now we are trying to remove these 566 fuel bundles from unit number 3. This is a picture of the top of the building of the unit number 3. Because of the hydrogen explosion, the top of the building is a mess. And so we have to clear those rubbles and then build this cylinder-shaped structure on the top of the building of the unit number 3. Inside, there is crane and fuel handling machines are installed already. And then we are about to remove the spent fuel from the unit number 3. Let me talk about the removing fuel debris. Each of the 3 units, 1, 2, 3, the condition of 3 units is different. From the analysis, we think that in unit number 1, almost all the nuclear fuels melted and fell down to the bottom of the container vessel. On the other hand, unit here, and then only a small portion fell down to the bottom of the vessel, container vessel. And then number 3 is maybe in between. And since the situation is different from each other, so we have to develop the different shapes of the robotics, because it's so radioactively, high level of the radioactive, so no human can go inside. So we have to let robotics go into, and then take up movies, and then monitor the radioactivities and temperatures and then those things. And this is a picture captured by robotics in unit number 2. So this is let me see. This is here, and then this robot's like fishing rods and then line. And then on the end of the line, there's a camera and then monitoring devices. And then this take picture from the above. So this is it. I don't know what it is, but this is many things melted and then fell down. Now, obviously, this is something different, pipes or shaft or something like that. This is not nuclear fuel. But so fuel debris is inside this. So now we are carefully analyzing whatever captured, and then planning how to approach to fuel debris. Probably the unit number 2 will be the first one. But it still needs 2 more years, 3 more years to start approaching that. And next, let me explain about our financial condition of Tokyo Electric Power Company. This is a historical profit and then loss. Because of the accident, in 3 consecutive fiscal years, we recorded a huge deficit, huge loss. But after that, 5 consecutive fiscal years, we have recorded profits. It looks good, but it isn't. It's not an easy thing. Let me talk about total estimation of the cost of the accident. The total cost consists of 3 parts. One is compensation, nuclear damage compensation, and the next is decontamination of the surrounding community, surrounding area, and the third is decommissioning of the plant itself. And the total estimated cost is $200 billion US. And 3/4 of this is TEPCO's responsibility. So $145 billion US, we have to make it. This is huge number, maybe too huge to imagine. So let me put it this way. It is said that decommissioning of the plant takes 30 to 40 years. So we don't need this much money now, right? So let's divide 145 billion performances, recent performances. From the fiscal 2015, 16, 17, we spent for the compensation expense maybe around 1.5, 1 billion dollar a year. And then decommissioning expenses was a similar number, 1.34 billion. After that, after spending those expenses, we recorded ordinary income around 2 to 3 billion dollar a year. So it ended up nearly $5 billion dollar a year. I'm not saying that we can do it. It's not difficult. I'm not saying that. I just wanted to understand that this is a huge number, but still we have to make it, and then we made it for the past 3 years. So but we have to continue to do this another 27 years. So it's not easy at all. But still, this is our responsibility. So we have to do this, cutting the cost and everything. Let me a little bit touch upon the activities of TEPCO, of the revitalization, restoration of the area. As I said, that people are returning to their homes, but it's not easy because after several years. So they need, the reading when they come back. The TEPCO members of TEPCO employees, this is a voluntary activities. They spent 3 days or 4 days in Fukushima and doing these things, and then come back to their office. And then total accumulated person days is over, it says 400,000, but now it's 430,000 person days spent doing this by our employees. They left their office and they visited Fukushima 3-4 days and doing these things, and then come back and tell us what they saw, what they did to their colleagues. And then their colleagues, okay, next is my turn, so I go there and spend several days doing things. I think that this is a great thing. This is a voluntary. But the TEPCO's people, I'm very much proud of them. They're doing these things. This is a very important and necessary activities. It's not just the compensation money. They need the people need those activities in order to come back to their homes. And last, this is a lessons that we learned from the accident. There are many things that we learned, but I listed only a few things, and then I know I'm running out of the time, so let me explain this last thing: building solidarity among the members of your organization. This is I would say this is the most important thing. Because this is a nuclear accident. In TEPCO, I would say that 3,000 or maybe 3,500 people belong to nuclear-related sections. The number of employees, total employees, was at the accident was something like 39,000. So less than 10% of our employees belong to nuclear-related section. So the rest of the 90% people, for them, this is a nuclear accident. Why my salary was cut? Or why I was accused by the accident? This is, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. This is nothing to do with me. It's that kind of the response or reaction is, I would say, it's kind of natural and then inevitable. But as I said, this accident is very serious. In order to take responsible for this accident, we need power from everybody. So as CEO, this is a more. I thought that this is the most important thing, to get together and then keep everybody's responsibility for this accident, keep the morale high, motivate them, and I think this is the most important thing. And then what I did as CEO, I visited field offices, branch offices. as a matter of fact, I was really busy as CEO. But even though that only a limited time available, I just went to the field office, and then I met people there, and had although it was short, but face-to-face conversation. And this is we called CEO's open meeting. This is again voluntary meeting because this was held on 6 o'clock in the evening. People just came to see me and then asked me many questions. And this is a kind of direct communication. And then this was, I don't know how much this worked, but these things are, I think, necessary, and to keep them posted, what's going on, and keep the motivation high. So I think there are many challenges ahead of us. So we have to hustle. We have to keep doing these kind of things for many more years. But we still keep our responsibility very high. So I would like you to keep your interest in Fukushima things or aftermath of the accident. And I don't want to tell you that this a beautiful story or anything. I just want you to know that the current situation. So thank you very much. This is my presentation. I'd like to ask you to ask questions. Should I stay here? Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there are many questions, and lots of questions, very little time. So as I said, let's keep the questions brief and get as many of you to ask as possible. Let me start by asking 1 or 2 questions myself. One of the big issues right now is what to do with all the contaminated water. There's nearly 1 million tons of radioactive water that's been stored in tanks. Some of it has been processed, but the question is of what to do with all this water. Because it keeps on raining, there keeps on coming more and more water, and they're running out of space. How do you deal with this issue?
Yes, it's one of the challenges that we have to cope with. We have developed advanced liquid processing system, ALPS. We call it ALPS system. Using this system and processing contaminated water, we can take all the nuclear things except tritium. But unfortunately, that the system didn't work when we installed. So first several years, it didn't work very well. So now, but still, we thought that we process it water and then they keep the risk level lower. And then we did it. So now, Professor Curtis said 1 million tons of the water. And I would say 20% of that is all processed, except tritium. And the rest of the 80%, half processed. So whenever we do something with this water, we have to reprocess the 80% of the half contaminated water again, so that we can make it purified, but except tritium. So tritium is concerned. The scientist says that it's no harm to your human body or whatever, but fishery business is very much concerned with discharging this tritiated water. So now it's government, some committees are now discussing seriously and had a public opinion meeting several times. And now it's the discussion is going on. So we just wait and see that. But whenever we treat this treated water, we need to have understanding of the fishermen, first of all. And we need some processes.
Thank you. You know, after the accident, the Diet established an investigative commission, which came out with a conclusion that was very damning of TEPCO, that this was a profoundly man-made disaster that could and should have been prevented. So the question is, what do you take away as having been the major lesson from the way TEPCO managed nuclear power and the way it ran its company that you as CEO then set out to change?
Yes. Of course, this accident was caused by tsunami. It's true. But looking back now, I think we could have done before something. For example, many of the batteries and then emergency turbine generator were put on the first floor or basement of the building. That's why that all of them are washed away. If we had some of the turbine generator on the top of the building, or the third floor or fourth floor of the building, that could have been the different results. So, of course, this I could say so because we knew how high that the tsunami was. But anyway, the most important lesson that, as far as the safety is concerned, do not think this is enough. This is safe enough. That's the biggest, the most important lesson that we learned. So in order to do so, you have to keep watching and listening whatever the things happening in the world, not just in nuclear power plants in abroad. But for example, 9/11 thing could be the lesson for the nuclear safety. We could have thought what could learn from 9/11 or those things. So just keep your eyes wide open and then improve your safety, no ends. So that's a lesson we learned.
Sure, thank you. Floor is yours, audience. Yeah, and just briefly identify yourself. Yes, that lady there. Yeah, okay, and then the one in front of you.
Oh, sorry.
You go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joyce Gelb, a professor emerita of the City University in New York, and hello.
Hi, Joyce.
Hi. My question, I appreciate very much your comments about the nature of the accident and the implications of it for employees and people in the area. I had many friends, and still do, in Japan, who were more concerned about the larger implications for the society in general. For example, people in Tokyo, people elsewhere, were concerned for years about the quality of milk, the quality of food, and I don't know if that was really a problem or just a perceived problem, and if you think actively dealt with now a number of years after. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, many consumers still worried about radioactive food. But Fukushima products, they checked all the package of the rice, all the package. And then there is no detection at all in the past, as far as I remember, 3 years or 5 years or so. So I would say it's safe. But I understand that the young mothers with small kids are very much concerned. I understand. So, of course, there are many other rice products from Niigata or elsewhere. Of course, they could choose that. But as far as the Fukushima products, of course, it's still some of the, for example, mushroom thing still prohibited. So we are watching, and the government, of course, watching and checking. And fishery, the fishermen has not started the regular fishing. Still, they are doing as test fishing. So they catch and then check. So some people say that because all the package of the rice is checked in Fukushima, so the Fukushima rice is safer than the others. This is a very strange way of saying. But anyway, we are doing many things to let consumer understand. But still, this is a matter of the taste or matter of the thing. So people do not believe, of course, would never buy things. Of course, in that case, this is what we called, sorry, it's Japanese, fuhyo higai. I don't know how to say it in English. It's rumor-based reluctancy of the procurement of that kind. I don't know how to say it in English, but still we compensate that damage if that price of the Fukushima product is unnecessarily reduced. We compensate that margin.
So the fishermen who can't fish, they cannot fish. Do you support them financially for the past 7 years plus?
So they average past fish volume and then fish income. We are compensating them. But it's sometimes people started saying that we better do our own job because that compensation is losing the how do you say work ethics or so it's not a good thing. But of course we pay as far as the damage remains. Right. But
well, it's not good for them either because people want to work for a living. They don't want to be on the dole.
Yeah, it's a very difficult problem. But
lady over there, yes, and then I'll go over to this side.
Thank you so much. My name is Maiko Takeuchi. I'm working for the United Nations. But before coming here, I was actually the liaison officer of the Defense Ministry to TEPCO during this earthquake time. So it's my question about related to your lesson learned and also my own experience. So my question is how you improved your organizational structure to react any unpredictable disaster after this earthquake. Because when I was a liaison officer there, unfortunately, the Defense Ministry did not have the one-stop answer point or anything. So but you have like much of social structure. So my question is how you improve the organization for the more smooth communication internally, and also how to liaise, like a relevant ministry or fire department or this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't explain how important that the communication is. I listed that the communication thing is very important, one of the lessons. And let me first explain that the special unit, when something seriously bad happens, it's kind of for the accident team. It's not communication things. But we learned it was chaotic 7.5 years ago. So, for example, the government, actually the Prime Minister came to our office or came to Fukushima Daiichi. It's not good. So we set up the team. This we learned from the it's called Incident Command Unit, ICU. This is the organization of the U.S. firefighters, and we learned and then we imported that system. And in that system, only a few people can report to the general manager, head of the nuclear power plant. Even I couldn't tell him pour the water or don't. I can't tell. Only a few people. And then there were too many people directly try to report to Yoshida-san, you know. So it was wrong. And then no interruption is necessary. So only this is kind of structure, organization of the special unit. And where even the Prime Minister called me, I was supposed to reject that telephone call. That was a right answer of that drill. And so we changed that very much. And as far as the communication is concerned, the biggest thing which annoyed me was that technical people tend to release whatever they found until after they find out what the cause or what the countermeasure is. Otherwise, they are asked many questions from media. They don't like it. So before they release the news, they try to prepare everything. And then we were accused TEPCO is hiding something again. So we did the same mistakes, I would say, several times. And now we are trying to put those technical person, but it's a little bit away from the line of the technical things. They advise to the person involved, and then let them, you know, release that, disclose that fact, and then they have to be they are encouraged to say, I don't know still. I don't know the reason, or I don't know how to do this. But still, they, you know, release that fact. They don't like that, of course. They are very much happy to explain everything at a time. But this is a matter of that, you know, drill. We have to do this many, many times. Every time they try to keep their information inside until they find everything. So we have to force them. So in order to do so, I put several, we call risk communicators. That's the title of the job. They are in the field, so they know what happens immediately. And they ask them to reveal the fact, information, data as soon as possible. But still, this is you know, saying is easy, but it's actually it's not easy to realize. But we are trying to do this. We have learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes.
Thank you. Yes.
This is Dr. Utsumi. I am with the Columbia University, and years ago, I visited my uncle in Shimosato-cho of Nachikatsura of Wakayama-ken, Yumeno. He was the one chief of the opposing to the construction of the nuclear plant in Kansai Denryoku. And I was forced to talk about the situation in the U.S. And I frankly mentioned about the aftermath of the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and so on, because Stone and Webster engineering company in Boston that time although I was belonging to the petrochemical, designing an ethylene plant, construct almost 26 ethylene plants in Japan through Japan gasoline company, Nihon Kihatsuyu. But my friends was working on the nuclear division, which designed the first nuclear power plant in Springfield, in Massachusetts. Then those engineers talking with me every lunchtime, they talks about their worry to lose the jobs because of the getting less and less job to do design the construct nuclear plant. So that time I went to this Wakayama-ken, and my uncle forced me to describe those situations. Then afterward, he succeeded to oppose the Kansai Denrik's nuclear power plant. And this appeared in the Asahi Shimbun.
Excuse me, but we're running out of time, so if you please just get to your question.
Yeah. So I'm saying that Japanese always generation behind of the American technologies. So you are unfortunate to not meet me that time. Then what the next future of the energy? And that Curtis is belonging to the CEPA of Colombia. And Colombia had the center of the global energy policies. And they had that just a discussion on the international nuclear energy agency, green energy with the solar and wind rather than nuclear, no coal. So I hope to see your vision of the Japanese electricity demand for the future.
Thank you. That's actually, we're out of time. This is a very good question to end this discussion on. Namely, when you look to the future now, TEPCO is an electric power company. Even if some more nuclear comes back online, it's not going to be what it was. And so what is the future of energy for Japan, especially when more than 60% of the population would like to see no nuclear? What's the vision?
Well, as you said, we are the electric power company. Our goal is supplying electricity whenever you need, and possibly cheaper and possibly green electricity. That's our goal. But Japan's self-sufficiency of energy is now only 7%, next to the last among 34 OECD nations. By the way, the last one is Luxembourg. So I don't think there is any power generation in Luxembourg. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, 7% is too low, strategically too low. This is a matter of national security. You know that we were fought in Second World War for oil, right? And then in 70s, we had the oil crisis. That time, our dependency on oil was 70, 80%. Since then, we tried to diversify the sources of energy. I think still, even after the accident, I think still the diversification is key. So I'm not saying that 100% nuclear, but the people who are against nuclear is 0% nuclear. So that's always, that irritates me. Our discussion can't match. I'm not saying that 100% nuclear electricity. I think that still Japan needs diversification, and strategically or national security viewpoint, we better have wide options, as many as possible. Of course, the renewable will be a dominant source of energy in future. I definitely think so. But still, we need backup. And it's just a matter of how much that, how efficient the battery becomes. But still, we need a wide varieties of the source, so that something happens in the Middle East, we can rely on the other things. Or something happens, some bad weather happens, all the rainy days continues, still we can rely on these things. So I think that diversification, the proportion, percentage of each things can be adjustable. But once you throw away one source, it's really difficult to let it come back. So I think diversification is key, and I think it's right answer for as far as the energy situation is concerned for Japan.
Well, excuse me. I think we're unfortunately we're out of time. I think this has been the time has flown by here, and I know you have more questions. Other people have, I'm sure have questions. This is a terribly important. Obviously, it goes without saying, this is a terribly important topic. This was the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. There are nuclear power plants all around the world. Questions of safety and management, control, and the desire to have more green energy. Sure. This is what looking to the future, we have to think about. And I think we all really owe a debt of gratitude to Mr. Hirose for spending time with us today to share his views, and we look forward to continuing this conversation in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.